Let's turn these bar height chairs into counter height chairs. First we're going to make a jig that will hold our pencil exactly 4 inches off the ground. This is a 19/64 drill. Now if it's a little high or a little low, it doesn't matter as long as you do all 4 legs the same amount. Obviously this works best with a hard, smooth floor. Once you have these pencil lines scribed on the legs, they'll tell you where to cut, and more importantly, what angle to cut to make it parallel with the floor. The key idea here is that because these legs are angled, you can't just throw it in a saw and cut it. You either have to raise the leg to the angle of the chair, or tilt your blade over to match the angle. Now you could just follow that line with a handsaw, but if you have a table saw with a blade you can angle, that's probably the easy way to do this. So in this case, I've tilted my blade over so that when I put this guy here, it'll match that angle, and this guy here will keep it at the right distance. If you can take the top half of the chair off, it makes it easier to maneuver around the table saw. Now if you're doing multiple chairs and they're all the same, you don't even need to scribe a line on the rest of the chairs. You can just use these settings on your saw and move them all through. Square your blade up for the next user. I always use a square on the blade because you can never really trust these little markings down here unless, of course, you have configured them appropriately the last time you did it. And even then it depends a little bit on the angle you're looking at it from. So unless you're better at this than I am, there's always going to be a very slight wiggle here because a couple of your legs are going to be longer than the others. So if you see it wiggling back and forth this way, that means these 2 legs that I'm marking with the X's are a little bit long. So we're going to sand those just slightly. Of course we have to sand around the edges anyways. So I'm just sanding until the X mark is partially taken off. Keep in mind, you don't have to get this perfect because we're putting felt pads on the bottom of these. So, here you can feel just a very slight wiggle, but once we put felt pads on, that's going to be just fine. Unfortunately, I didn't have any round pads of the right size, so I just cut these out of flat sheets of felt. With the felt pads installed, these guys are rock solid.